Chapter 2. On Monday after school, Michael carefully drove his dad's car straight to the hospital. School had been horrible. The other kids stared at Michael as if he had some rare disease, and he could hear them whispering as he walked by in the halls. His teachers treated him like he was a delinquent, like those kids who sat in the back of the room throwing spitballs, if they bothered to show up at all. In the halls and cafeteria there was also the obvious absence of three very familiar faces. Michael had gotten up the nerve to call and check on his friends Sunday afternoon. Mark and Dave were expected to come home from the hospital on Monday, but Chase had suffered severe head trauma, and they weren't sure if he would recover completely. And then to top it all off, Michael had to tell his track coach he was getting a job after school and wouldn't be able to go to practices. Coach Robinson raised an eyebrow. "Son, you know the rule, no practice, no play, right?" "Yes, sir. And you know that if you don't play, then there will be no chance for a scholarship, right?" Michael kicked a bare spot on the grass. "Yes, sir, I know. It's only temporary." "Well, I hope so," Coach replied, and turned back to face the track. Michael was crushed. He had forgotten all about the scholarship scouts coming next week. "That's just great," he said to himself. "Another devastating blow to the future of Michael Holder." He blinked away a tear as he turned into the hospital parking lot. He rounded the corner of the ICU waiting room and found his mom staring blankly at a magazine. "How busy?" Michael asked. "Oh, Michael, how was school?" She looked relieved to have someone to talk to. "Great, Mom. How did the surgery go?" "It went well. Dad's in the ICU now. He'll be there overnight, just so they can make sure he's stable before moving him to a regular room. We can see him in about 15 minutes. "Okay." Michael took a deep breath and sat next to his mom. At 3:30, a nurse poked her head inside the waiting room. "Holder family?" Mrs. Holder looked up. "You can see him now," the nurse announced, and motioned for them to follow her. They approached a heavy wooden door labeled Intensive Care Unit. The nurse pulled the shiny metal handle and followed Michael and his mom to pass in front of her. "He's in bed 4. She pointed to a pulled curtain in the center of the wall. Michael and his mom walked toward him as the nurse explained quietly. "He has an IV, a Pleurevac, telemetry, and oxygen, so don't be alarmed at all the tubes and wires. They're just to help him back on his feet again." "A pleur what?" Michael wondered. Just hearing her describe it all is alarming enough. But when he pulled back the curtain, he realized that nothing could be as disturbing as what he saw. His dad, the guy who had wrestled with him, played basketball with him, and occasionally turned Michael over his knee, was lying there helpless. His face was swollen and pale. His eyes seemed to be plastered shut, and there were tubes everywhere. Tubes up his nose, a tube taped to his arm, and a tube running from his chest to a labeled Pleurevac in blue. "It helps to empty the fluid from his lungs," the nurse explained, noticing Michael's look of horror. "Oh, right," Michael answered quickly and turned to look at his dad. His mom was holding his dad's still hand. A single tear rolled down her face. "Charles, can you hear me?" His dad's eyes fluttered a bit. "Dee." "Hi, honey," he answered in a weak voice. Michael walked closer to the bed. "Dad, you okay?" The man smiled weakly at his son. "I'm all right, just a little tired." Michael stood there for a moment, watching his mother and father, not knowing what to say or do. It felt awful being so helpless. He couldn't take it any longer. He had to leave, now. "Oh, okay. I'll go and let you rest. I just wanted to say hi." Michael began to back out of the room. He looked at his mom. "I'm going to look for a job. I'll be home later." His mom nodded and turned back to his dad. Michael walked quickly out of the ICU. He filled his lungs with the outside air, thankful to be away from the chemical smells and electronic sounds of the hospital. He climbed into his dad's car, not really knowing where to start. He had never had a real job before. He drove down Restaurant Row, as he and his friends called it, and saw hiring servers on one of the signs. Might as well try this, he thought. He turned into the parking lot and went inside. At the hostess stand, a girl his age asked, "How many?" Michael cleared his throat. Actually, I'm here to apply for a job." "Oh, okay," she giggled. "Hang on." A few minutes later, a guy not much older than Michael emerged from the back, wearing a manager name tag and carrying a clipboard. "Hi, I'm Larry. You wanted to apply for the server position?" Yes, sir. I'm Michael Holder." He quickly shook Larry's hand and followed him back to a small office. "Here, fill this out." Larry handed him an application. "But to tell you the truth, we're desperate. We just need warm bodies. You're not a criminal or anything, are you? Larry laughed. Michael stared at the application, and the same question jumped out at him from the paper. Well, what do you exactly mean by criminal? Larry straightened up his smile and peered across the desk at Michael. I mean, well, that you haven't been convicted of any crimes. You don't have anything on your record. You don't, do you? You see, I have this stupid reckless endangerment charge pending, but, I'm sure after the judge hears the whole story, he'll drop everything. Michael reached to pick up the pen Larry had given him. Sure, kid, Larry answered, and stood up from his chair. On second thought, I've got some things to take care of. Why don't you fill out that application in one of these booths and leave it with the hostess? I'll give you a call if we have anything. Okay, thanks, Michael mumbled. He walked out of the office, dropped the clipboard with the blank application on the first booth he saw, and walked out the door. He got into the car and clenched the steering wheel. Now what? He asked out loud. Now what? A passing couple looked over at him and quickened their pace. He turned the key and spun away. As he drove, he thought about his pale, weak dad, lying in the hospital, and his mom holding his hand. How could I let them down? Why did I let them down? Yes, they taught me better. Of course I knew better. But I did it. I did it anyway. And now what? My dad, who has lost all faith in his son, is sick. Looks like he's dying. And the one time in his life when he needs me. Whoa! Michael swerved to miss a squirrel running across the road. And what's he going to come home to? Michael was now yelling over the radio. Hey Dad, your loser son just ruined his chances for a scholarship because he's got to pay for an attorney, and now he can't even pay for an attorney because he can't get a job. Why? Because he's a criminal. Oh, and welcome home, Pops. Tears began to flow down his face. The road was blurry in front of him, and he strained to see the street sign. Clark Avenue. I'm way past our street, but he didn't care. What would he tell his mom if he went home now? He stomped on the gas. The golden red leaves of the trees blurred as they passed faster and faster. Why am I even here anyway? God, why? You see what I've done to my parents? They have zero trust in me now. And Coach Robinson, he's going to give up on me, and I wouldn't blame him. Michael was past the subdivision now, and the road was becoming more narrow and winding. My friends, oh yeah, I put them in the hospital. Even that Larry, the restaurant manager guy, a total stranger, doesn't even trust me to carry trays of food around his restaurant. What kind of future does a guy like me have? None. That's right, none. Why did all of this happen to me? Michael threw his hands in the air as he approached the upcoming curve. Hey, a crash got me into this mess. Maybe a crash will get me out. When he saw the steep embankment, he grabbed the wheel again, but it was too late. Oh God, why me? And then nothing.